Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matheny Diversity Committee webinar for Black History Month. We have a special guest here today, and I just want to give our Matheny family just maybe 1 minute to sign in, okay? Where I see the numbers are rising, so that's good. So my name is Yvette Mosquera, and I'm the Director of Marketing, Communications, and Development at Matheny. And I will be introducing my colleagues, my wonderful colleagues, Rosa Kettles and Dr. Langa, in just about a minute. I just want to give people time to sign in because I see that we have a few people already signed in. Okay, and this panel, this webinar is being recorded and it will go onto the employee portal and we can email it to all the employees because we realize that there's so many people who are working hard right now and they're not able to stop and do what they're doing. So that's the reason that we're recording this. Okay. And good, we have a few attendees here. So I think we can get started. It's 12:01. I'm going to introduce to my bottom is the Rosa Kettles from Human Resources. Rosa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's in the panel, our speaker today, the audience. I think it's so important for us to be able to represent diversity in our workforce. Our speaker is going to bring a wealth of education and awareness of what we want to project to everybody. As you know, I am Rosa Kettles. I'm the Human Resources Business Partner at Matheny. I also co-chair the Diversity Committee. We have had a wonderful 2 years of events that I believe have been strong, have brought us to the next level at Matheny. And this event today, it's going to be just as powerful, and I look so forward to it. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Langa, who's going to be speaking to you now. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I also want to thank all of you for attending this webinar on Black History Month. And as Rosa stated, we have, I'm the co-chair of the Cultural Diversity and Inclusion team, and we've been in this role for a little bit over two years. And we have a great team that we've been working with. We're really blessed to have such a team. I'm not going to go into mentioning their names, but they know who they are, and we really appreciate all of you. And we also want to thank Sharon for taking time out of her busy schedule to come and spend some time with us here today. And we appreciate her being here, and I'm sure it's going to be a very great experience. It's going to be interactive at some point. We'll be able to ask questions, so that she doesn't do all the talking by herself. I just want to add that Black History Month is not only celebrated in the United States of America, it's also being celebrated in Canada, Ireland, the Netherlands, and the UK. So a lot of other countries around the world are adopting this day, this month. And this is the time when we learn more about Black history, their contributions, and everything to do with people who are Black and brown. So you're all welcome, and thank you very much.
Thanks. Dr. Lunga, you just jogged my memory. So just so everyone knows, I want to tell the audience that the Q&A box is open. So for those of you who are on Zoom and you want to ask questions, we do have time at the end of Sharon's presentation for Q&A. You can definitely type it in there. You might even want to type it into the chat, but I think the Q&A would be the best place. So now I introduce to you the woman of the hour, Sharon Stroye, and she's from Rutgers, Newark. And we are so happy and so proud to have you here, Sharon. Please welcome to the Matheny family. And I'm sure this will not be the last time that we see you. But you're on mute, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Yvette, Rosa, and Dr. Langa. I appreciate the welcome, the invitation, and the remarks. But before we get started, I want to ask, in this midst of COVID and the past year, we have seen what we thought were our normal lives completely transform and change. Some of us may have lost loved ones. Some of us may have family members who have suffered from COVID. And our normal has completely changed. So I want to take the time to acknowledge those who may have lost loved ones and family members, those that may be sick right now, where your financial situation may have changed, or you're home being a teacher to your children when you didn't think that education was your calling. So I want to take the moment to acknowledge that. And for our attendees, to place in the chat, as Yvette stated, I am an educator at Rutgers University, Newark, but I'm also a teacher and I like to have interaction. So I would like for you to place in the chat one word to describe how you're feeling today. One word to describe how you're feeling today. My one word is appreciative, but I also have another word that I use is unapologetic. I'm going to be unapologetic about speaking my truth, unapologetic about wanting us to come together in humanity as a group of people, and unapologetic to having hope that for the next generation that things will change. So I want to thank you for those that are participating. I see alive, thankful, absolutely, because there are days where today we're just being really thankful. In an hour, we may feel a little different. By tomorrow, we may have something else going on, but for this moment, we're thankful. I do have a presentation that I'm going to ask Yvette to share with you, and we'll get started with my discussion.
Sure. I will share it right now. Let me start with the first slide. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, Sharon, I'm going to make you the spotlight. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to mute myself, and then Dr. Lunga and Rosa, they'll also mute.
Good afternoon, Matheny family. I appreciate the invitation for Black History Month. And my conversation really is around the conversation about the meaning, the myth, and celebrating historical impact. But it's not just a month. It's not just about Black history. It is about history for all. And sometimes we don't realize that we're making history as we stand right now, and that there are contributions that we take for granted. And so I'm going to be with you for a few minutes and then look forward to some question and answers. Next slide. Martin Luther King said, "We are not makers of history, we are made by history." So we need to understand that we are walking in history and we are living as a result of history. So I want to share a little bit about myself with you. I am the Director of Public Engagement in the School of Public Affairs and Administration. I am also the Director of the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Center, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I want you to also know that I am a first-generation low income. I am the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't celebrate my first birthday until I was 30 years old. My mom was a single mom of 3 girls and taking care of girls and making sure that we had a roof, that we had food. And my birthday happened to fall in December, which I guess the understanding was it was too close to Christmas. So I do appreciate what she did for Christmas, but I didn't actually have my first birthday party till I was 30. My oldest son, my firstborn son, had open heart surgery at 10 days of birth. It opened us up to understanding that he needed physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. And I've learned everything that I could possibly learn about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But he was also the first one to actually overcome his learning disabilities when he went to college and had to be tested again. And they said he no longer had that diagnosis. I'm the first one in my family to have 3 degrees, an undergraduate degree in accounting, a master's degree in public administration, and a master's degree in business administration. My first international flight was to visit China, and I actually went by myself. My son had the ability to be part of a program at Johns Hopkins University at 16 years old, and I didn't want him to go alone. So I chaperoned him and 30 other young adults. And when I got off the plane, I realized that I was actually in China for the first time for 10 days by myself. For a moment, I was afraid, but then I realized that there was nothing to be afraid, and I completely enjoyed myself. I became the first assistant dean for the undergraduate program in the School of Public Affairs Administration when they only had 25 students. They now have 400 students. I am the first director of public engagement in the School of Public Affairs Administration, and my role is to connect faculty, staff, students, alumni, and our community partners and create relationships and opportunities. And in the midst of COVID-19, I became a grandmother to my first grandchild born during May 2020. So in my family, I've made some history. In your family, in your community, in your circle of influence, I'm sure all of you are making history. Next slide. As the director of the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Center, in 2017, the Association of American Colleges and Universities sent out a request for proposals for colleges and universities to host a campus center. We call it the TRHT Center at Rutgers University, Newark. The goal of the center is to dismantle institutional and structural racism. It is to create programming, work with individuals, build partnerships to really look at the understanding of institutional and structural racism, and to dismantle the belief of a hierarchy in human value. Meaning, just because you have a different skin or different background, that you are at the top of the food chain. Because in reality, we are all humans. So what we do, we used a shared humanity approach. Meaning, I need you to look at me as a human being first before you look at my race, my ethnicity, my gender, my sexual orientation, my religion, and even my political ideology. Because at the end of the day, we are somebody's mother, daughter, brother, sister, son, uncle. That we've all have grandparents. We've all experienced some form of issue, trauma, drama. We've lost loved ones. So when we're all able to look at one another from a shared humanity perspective, the key to dismantling institutional and structural racism is communication. Currently, there are 23 campus centers across the country located on colleges and universities. And the reason they selected colleges and universities is because they have been perpetuated racism. When you have students that come in to get a 4-year degree and they've never seen an African and American faculty member, or the books that they read don't represent the diversity of this country or this world. So what happens is that person still thinks the same way about Black and brown men and women, religion. They still have the same ideology because they've not been exposed. So the pillars that we work with are narrative change, racial healing, relationship building, law, economy, and separation. When we talk about economy, are your policies and procedures representative to create access for everyone? When we talk about the term separation, are there communities that are dealing with abject poverty, and what are we doing to help them? for those individuals that may have some physical barriers to enter the building, to be on this webinar? Are we creating access and giving them the ability to participate in the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? What do our laws look like? The federal, state, and local governments have placed laws on the books for hundreds of years that have excluded all types of people. We need to be advocates for laws. We need to be involved. No matter what our role is, no matter what our position is, no matter what we think we're capable of or not, we all can be aware about policies and procedures in the things that we do every day. So at the center, we really focus on narrative change, racial healing, and relationship building. How do we change the narrative to where you think you're worthy, to where people feel welcome? How do you engage people who enter your department or enter your building? Do you say good morning? Do you say hello? Are you experiencing a bad day? And because you may be experiencing a bad day, how is that being portrayed to somebody else? And then we do what is called racial healing circles. It's an opportunity for people to come together and share stories about our shared humanity experiences. So I welcome anybody, if you would like further information about the TRHT Center or just to how to engage, please feel free to reach out. Next slide. The presentation is in recognition and celebration of Black History Month. But Black History Month is not just one month. In my research and preparing for today, you will be amazed at all of the celebration and awareness that goes on throughout the entire calendar year. January is known for National Mentoring Month. February is for Black History Month, but it's also the month where we have American Heart Awareness. March is about Women's History Month, but it's also the month to celebrate Irish Americans. April is the month where we acknowledge Arab Americans. It is the month for autism awareness. It is also the month for jazz appreciation. Once again, doesn't matter race, color, skin, gender, everyone can appreciate jazz. May is recognized as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. It is also the month for Haitian Heritage Month. Mental Health Awareness Month. June is the Pride Month for LGBTQIA. It is also the month where we take awareness for Alzheimer's. Interesting, July is Ice Cream Appreciation Month, which I'm sure we all have our favorite ice creams, but it is also the month for sarcoma awareness. We get a little vacation in August, but September begins the recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month, which continues into October. That is also the month for Filipino American heritage and Italian American heritage. November is Indigenous Heritage Month, our native Alaskan Indians who were in this country from the beginning. But it is also Alzheimer's Awareness Month. December is celebrated by all ethnicities, groups, and people. So yes, we are currently come together today to talk about Black History Month. But Black History Month, Women's History Month, and all of the other months are American history. And sometimes we don't realize simply because we just don't know of the contributions of all of these people, contributions that African Americans have led to this country, contributions that we are currently benefiting from today. Next slide. What is Black History Month? Black History Month is a month that is celebrated to recognize the contributions of African Americans in the United States. But as Dr. Longa stated, it is also celebrated in other countries as well. And the reason it is celebrated is because of the racist history that has occurred in the United States that basically wiped or eliminated or tried to eliminate the contributions of what African Americans have done. So my question to you is, what does Black History Month mean to you? While I share my next remarks, please put in the chat box, what does Black History Month mean to you? Why is it important to me? As an African American woman who raised three children and a grandson, I grew up without looking at people that looked like me. Yes, there were the stories of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, but there's so much more to our history than that. But the other reason why it's important to me is because I am a part of this country. My ancestors are part of the land. My ancestors built this land. And we all need to take pride in being able to walk free. Now, there's some people that may not necessarily feel free, but because of this history and because of what they've done, it's important that we all understand and we all know our history. The things that are currently going on in the country today, the racial unrest, the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rashad Brooks, Elijah McClain, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland. It has to deal with lack of communication and lack of understanding. It has to deal with not being able to see my Black body as human. 1619, 20 Africans were brought to the shores of Virginia. Within the 17th and 18th century, 6 to 7 million people were enslaved. In 1786, when the Constitution was founded, I was declared 3/5 of a person. However, they did see some reconciliation in 1868 with the 14th Amendment to discount that. But there's still times when people see me and don't necessarily see me as a whole person. 1863, January 1st, when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, 3 million people, enslaved people, were set free. Set free with no education, no income, no home, and no land. 1882 to 1968, there were over 4,000 lynchings. 4,743 people were lynched from trees. Over 1,200 of them were whites, 3,400 of them were Blacks. From 1896 to 1954, the law of the land, the Supreme Court said it was okay to be separate but equal. We could have separate schools, separate transportation, separate entrances to the bathrooms, separate places in public, but it wasn't equal. We didn't get the same resources. World War II lasted from 1939 to 1945. 1 million African Americans did not benefit from the GI Bill. When those soldiers came home from war, they were able to get mortgages to buy houses. They were able to get educational scholarships to go to school. They were able to generate wealth. But 1 million African American soldiers were not allowed to benefit from the GI Bill based on the policies and the implementation practices in the states throughout the country. Last year, we celebrate the 100 years of the 19th Amendment where women had the right to vote. However, African American women did not gain the right to vote until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And in 2019, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice did a report about the New Jersey wealth gap. The median net worth of white individuals in New Jersey is $309,000. The median net worth for people Latino, Hispanic is $7,000. And the median net worth for African-American families is $5,900. So the reason Black History Month is important is because the institution of slavery has a long history of being separate and not equal. And we are still dealing with the ramifications of those policies, procedures, laws today. Next slide. So Black History Month. Why is it important and why did we feel that there was a need to celebrate? Carter G. Woodson is known as the father of Black history. He has degrees from an undergraduate degree and a master's degree from the University of Chicago. He was the second African-American to receive a PhD from Harvard University. He wanted to document and track the history and the contributions of African-Americans in this country. So he decided to institute what was called Negro History Week. The first celebration of Negro History Week was in 1926. And the reason he selected February because he felt the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass were in February was so important to the African-American story that they wanted to celebrate it in February. The first actual celebration occurred in the fraternity Omega Psi Phi in 1924 as the Negro History and Literature Week. But the first national celebration of that week was 1926. With Carter G. Woodson advocating and creating awareness from the 1940s to the 1960s was the expansion of celebrating, documenting the contributions of African Americans to this country and society. In the 1960s, college students, young people enrolled in Black history courses, participated in protests and civil rights activism activities, just like the same young people who were protesting during this last summer for Black Lives Matter after the death of George Floyd. But for the first time in the history of protests, it wasn't just Black young people, it was white young people, it was Hispanic young people, it was people across the globe that participated in those protests. So Black history is American history. Black history is world history. The first Black History Month occurred in 1976 and was proclaimed by President Gerald Ford, the first president to celebrate. And he felt that seizing the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. He felt it was important. I need to say, he was a Republican president. From 1981 to 1989, President Ronald Reagan signed into law the federal national holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King. He stated, understanding the history of Black Americans is key to understanding the strength of our nation. In 2016, as President Barack Obama was leaving office, it had been 90 years since the celebration of Negro History Week and 40 years since the celebration of Black History Month. Extremely important that the awareness and contributions of African Americans to this country, to society, to our humanity needed to be recognized. Next slide. And as I learned and discussed with Rosa and Dr. Longa about the work that you do, the important work that everyone does at the Matheny Institute, the Matheny organization, I needed to make sure that I paid reverence and honor to individuals who may be dealing with disabilities. Did you know that Harriet Tubman, who enslaved hundreds of enslaved people to escape from the South, was disabled and suffered from epilepsy, which caused seizures, headaches, and vision suffered, and she also suffered with narcolepsy. She developed epilepsy when she was struck in the head with a weight that was being thrown at another enslaved person at 12 years of age. Did you know that Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a civil rights activist who helped African Americans register to vote, who co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, was sterilized without her knowledge and consent, suffered polio as a child, and due to a vicious beating in a jail, lived with kidney damage and suffered a limp. But it didn't stop her from registering people to vote. Did you know Barbara Jordan, the first African-American woman to serve in the Texas Senate in 1967, and the first African-American woman to serve as a congressperson in 1973, suffered from multiple sclerosis? It's interesting that there's a little bit of history, and now I knew all of these people, but I did not know that about them. Why do we feel the need to hide our different abilities? We're not disabled, we're different. Some of the people are some of the most talented and gifted individuals, but they hide. There's no reason to hide. And how are they treated? How are they supposed to be treated? They're human beings, they breathe air. Some of them have 2 arms, some of them may have 1. Some of them have 2 legs and some may have 1. Some may have sight and some may not have sight. But does that discount them from being human? I don't think so. So because of the awesome work that you do, I find it a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Next slide. When we talk about people, African Americans, who contribute to our current way of life, Jesse Eugene Russell was an electrical engineer, is an electrical engineer. He studied at Tennessee State University and Stanford University. Jesse Eugene Russell led the team at Bell Labs to start to design the wires and the technology for digital communication. He led the team to design the technology for cell phones. Every single one of us, no matter your economic station, your position in life, at this current time, probably has a cell phone. That was done by a Black man. Mary Ann Shad Carey was an abolitionist, first African-American newspaper editor in the Northern America, founded a Black newspaper, the Providence of Freemen, second African-American woman to earn a law degree, and a major player during the suffrage movement for women to have the right to vote. There were numbers of African-American women that participated in the suffrage movement. They wanted to join the white women in the cause, but the white women wanted them to stay at the back of the line and not be seen. Regardless of how they treated, we now have the ability to vote. And in all of the elections, women have shown up and shown out. White women, Black women, all women, and has changed election outcomes. Daniel Hale Williams was an African-American general surgeon, the first surgeon to perform open heart surgery onto a person who was stabbed in their heart from a wound. He also founded the first non-segregated hospital in Chicago and founded an associated nursing school for African Americans to pursue the field of nursing. Had it not been for Dr. Williams, maybe my son might not have, maybe have some challenges with his open heart surgery at 10 days of birth. So this is why African American history, Black history is important. It's important to us. It's definitely important to me. Next slide. As we celebrate and come together to acknowledge the contributions of African Americans to this country, it's not just African Americans, it's Italian Americans, it's Arab Americans. But how do we do that in our everyday lives? We take the time out to discover all of the African American artists, read about the authors, listen to the music, learn about important moments, the scientists, the organizations and the institutions that were founded. That's how we celebrate. But one of the most important ways to celebrate is to talk to one another, to listen to one another, to hear one another. Don't be uncomfortable asking questions that you just don't know. Because when you don't know, you just don't know. But please don't be afraid to ask questions, to ask about my great-grandmother, to ask about my upbringing, to ask about my first time experiencing racism. Don't be afraid. Ask the question. And be willing to share your history, share your story. Because when you actually take the time to sit down and ask how somebody is doing or ask about them, you may actually find out that you have more in common than you do different. Next slide. I want to thank you for allowing me to share just a few of my thoughts, to share some of the work that I'm passionate about doing and engaging you, and look forward to engaging you in a conversation. Because at the end of the day, your history is American history. Thank you.
Sharon,
Yes.
you are awesome. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to hand it over to the co-chairs of the Diversity Committee, but I am just, me personally, in awe. And I thank you for the few minutes that you gave us. I learned so much, and such valuable information. I commend you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Rosa, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Sharon, I am speechless. I am, I honestly, great, excellent job. I think that what you have done, taken such a sensitive topic that a lot of us avoid talking about, you know, because of the awkwardness, because of, well, I don't know how the other person's going to react, or, you know, what if I do something or say something that will make another person feel bad. You came about, and the way you presented this presentation was just amazing. And we thank you. I take away a couple of things. Most importantly, I take away the shared humanity. Is think about us personally, individual. I did this, I did that. And then how do you then respect others for who they are, for what they did? So again, like Yvette said, thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. Dr. Langa?
Yes, I'm also saying thank you so much. In my 2 or 3 years of being the co-chair, I think this was the most powerful presentation I have listened to. It was powerful indeed and very moving indeed. And then the spirit in which you did it, the honesty, I think to me that was really something that was very touching. And for us to really hear, to discuss these issues, we need to be very honest about it. And like Rosa mentioned, the shared humanity, we really need to focus on the shared humanity, that we're all human, we're all the same people in the eyes of God. So this was wonderful. So thank you so much.
Sharon, do you mind if I read some of the comments from the chat box? Because I know you had asked the question before, what does Black history mean to you? And I think some of the answers are very interesting. So one person says, to understand each other and never forget the history. I feel that we do not understand people and we misjudge people for no reason. So that was good. And then someone else said, celebrating how far we've come and acknowledging how far we have yet to go. This was one comment that I had made. I was born and raised in Newark, so I knew that Black history was needed to be able to learn about people's struggles and understand them, or at least try to understand them. And therefore we end up loving each other once we understand, I think. There are many different groups of people in our country. It is important to stress that. So that was one. And then there was another one that says, it means liberation. Finally, a chance to be a part of history. Finally, a chance to be recognized for the free work contributed during slavery. Finally, a chance to have the freedom to enlighten not only my child, but everyone I come in contact with. Finally, our history is allowed. Finally, but we need so much more. And then we have Rosa, who said, love it. Black history is world history. Someone else said, I think that Paul Laurence Dunbar said it best with we wear the mask. My favorite is Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? Mm-hmm. Ain't I a woman? And then someone said, thank you. This is great. More to research. It was great. Thank you. Very honest and touching presentation. So, and then do you want to go into the Q&A now or do you, yep. Okay. Let's go into the Q&A right now. Okay, so the first question is, do you speak Chinese? I love that question.
No, I don't, but I definitely have taken time to learn a few Mandarin words, which I will not mess up today because I have too much respect for the language. And I always try to create, so in a different role, I was the director of an upper bound program to help high school students get into college. And during the summer, I would have them, instead of them taking French and Spanish classes, during the summer, I would have them take Mandarin. And that way, and simply to go into their community, into the Chinese restaurants that were in their community and communicate with those small business owners. If you're going in there ordering food, why don't you communicate in the language that they can receive it? And they had a completely different relationship with those individuals that were in their community. So yeah, it's definitely been an eye-opening experience. No, I don't speak Mandarin, but I would love to try to get there.
Great. The next question is, after Luling, what actions are going to be taken? In other words, when the talk is over, will actions speak louder than words? I guess that's for us co-chairs. For you co-chairs of the diversity committee, do you want to say anything about that, Dr. Longo or Rosa?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, we are taking baby steps, but we need those baby steps to get where we need to get. And when I mean by baby steps, meaning bringing awareness to our staff members, bringing this awareness to our senior leadership and board of directors. Going forward, this is where we need everybody involved, everything that we do, the full respect that we have for diversity and inclusion is definitely our number one goal. So I definitely see that as definitely a future project for Matheny.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add to that, yes, I agree. Like Rosa said, yeah, we're taking baby steps. For instance, Matheny used not to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Since we got involved, that is a holiday in Matheny now, which is a great achievement. So yeah, we're taking the baby steps, but we need more involvement from the Matheny community. We're 600, about 643. Right now we have 22 people who are attending. So we need more involvement if we want to move forward in this process.
Yeah, and by doing this, I think to commend the diversity committee, honestly, you guys have been doing a lot more programming recently, and it's been going very well, and I think it's just going to get better. Another question. Oh, sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Yvette. I think that you've also spearheaded a lot of this event to make it social media, to make it larger, to get more people involved. So thank you and your staff, and Anne, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, my staff is the best. The next question is, do you think we have done enough to honor Harriet Tubman? That's to Sharon.
As everybody else has stated, we're getting there. And to be honest with you, I don't know if there ever is enough. I hope for the next generation that we get there. But we're talking about 401 years since those original 20 Africans were on the shores of Virginia in this land. But in that 401 years, every single system, economic, education, healthcare, judicial, political, housing, insurance, every single system has been built to keep people out. I mean, it's just been built to keep people out. And I just think that we as human beings, every day we're responsible for moving that needle forward. And so let me just share a personal story as to why I continue to do this work, and why when Yvette called, it was just a no-brainer for me to just say yes. But also she's a SPA alumni, so of course I'm going to do whatever she asked me to do. But I have 3 children. They're all adults now, and I have my daughter's a mechanical engineer, and my oldest son had all types of learning disabilities, but right now he works with teenagers. And my youngest son is an artist that lives in California. As my sons were growing up, all of them went to predominantly white high schools. And there have been times where we've been the only person of color in events or activities. But I had to have these conversations with my sons about being Black and male in America. If you're stopped by the police, if this happens, or if this is going on. My son, who lives in California, some years ago was detained by the police and was posted on Facebook. My heart could have dropped because I didn't know in New Jersey what the outcome was going to be. And so I say all of that to say that I've had to have these conversations with my adult children about being Black and male in America, being the only female in a mechanical engineering, female of color in a mechanical engineering program, and how to sustain that. I have no intention or desire to have that conversation with my grandson. I have none whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to have that conversation. You know why? Because I'm going to continue to do programs like this. I'm going to continue to engage people of all ethnicities and backgrounds in conversations to where the next generation that comes behind me will create a different reality for my grandson. I'm not going to be here. He's 9 months old. That means that I'm charged with the next generation of being aware, educated, and comfortable to have these conversations, regardless of your race, ethnicity, background, orientation, religion, that doesn't matter. We're going to get comfortable to have these conversations. So those leaders that are in charge of the Matheny organization, that are in charge at Rutgers, that are in charge of schools and places, I don't have to worry about my grandson. And I think that's how we have to look at the work that we do. Every single person in this space has a circle of influence. You influence somebody. How are you influencing them?
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So Catherine just wanted to let you know, she says, hello, hi, Catherine. She says her daughter speaks fluent Chinese. She loves it and spent a year there as a junior in high school.
I'm happy for her, Catherine. My son spent 3 weeks in the summertime. It was amazing. Good for her.
And that word, I'm sorry, was not luling, it was looking. It was just a typo. Then the next question is, do you think that universities should lower tuition during times of COVID, especially because of the relative cost of streaming?
Ooh. So there's my professional response, and then there's my personal response. And, you know, because I don't have any other choice but to be authentic. We lower tuition, I'm out of a job. Understanding the cost of education is ridiculously through the roof. In the midst of COVID, are they still getting the same impact? I have conversations with students. I have conversations with students now that this remote learning is not conducive to them. They're not engaged in the same way. So what you're paying for and what you're getting is definitely not the same thing. But just like any other institution, we operate on a budget. And fortunately, at Rutgers University, they have when COVID happened, they refunded the cost of room and board. They reduced the cost of fees. Those things, those extra things that we would charge, they reduced it and made sure that students didn't have to pay it. Then they raised money for those students that were in drastic need, because think about, you go remote, but you don't have a laptop or you don't have Wi-Fi access. So they raised money within the first month, we gave away $50,000 just for people to buy laptops or to pay a bill. And that was in March and April. Rutgers University took a $200 million loss from the state. We're a state school. $200 million loss from the state. So yes, I do understand it is not the same experience for what you're paying for, but we are still an organization and gives me the ability to come and talk to you. I guess that's my best answer. There is no right or wrong. And COVID is not normal for anyone.
Yeah. One question, is it true that Harriet Tubman was operated on without anesthesia? Do you know that?
I have not confirmed it, but it's definitely been a conversation that she had been. But if not her, that was actually normal behavior for enslaved women, especially enslaved women, to be operated on without anesthesia, to endure traumatic medical procedures. So this distrust of the medical institution is real. And even in the midst of this COVID vaccine, the things that especially women endured at the hand of science, so to say, is so true. An organization that I've done some research on when I was doing my MBA degree, I needed to do research on Aetna and in their HR. And as I was doing research, it was interesting to find how Aetna does a lot of studies in the Black and Brown community. Well, the origin of Aetna, the insurance company, they actually insured enslaved people. So if a enslaved person was killed, the slave owner was reimbursed. But they also used the enslaved people for medical research for the doctors. So the foundations and the origins of Aetna is grounded in the institution of slavery. Mm-hmm. And their way of making atones is making sure that they hire people of color, that they make sure that they have board of directors that are diverse on their board. They do a lot of clinical research and studies to improve the health disparities in Black and Brown communities. So I don't necessarily know if Harriet Tubman was operated on, but there were definitely a lot of other Black women that were without anesthesia.
So we only have a few minutes left, but I did want to maybe give Dr. Lunga a chance to ask a question or say a few closing remarks. But what I did want to ask you before you leave is if you have any other thoughts or ideas on how we at Matheny can continue the conversation about DEI and not just, about diversity in terms of race, but as you understand, we live with and we love all of the people that we serve, and we see them as our family, right? All of our patients. But maybe how do we continue having these types of conversations, and what tips do you have or what ideas, for us before we leave? And then Dr. Lunga, you can.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to definitely comment on is a comment that Rosa made. It is extremely important that this is intentionality in all of your planning, and these conversations are happening at every level, from the leadership all the way down to the personal care assistants. Everybody needs to take a moment, schedule a time to where they can have these types of conversations, and they may not necessarily feel good or they don't feel comfortable, but being able to create spaces to discuss real, true people's concerns and how they interact, but on a humanity level. Because what you also may find, you having these issues amongst people of color, where the person of the supervisor is a person of color and the staff person, but because it all goes back to feeling validated, feeling heard, and that their voices and their stories matter. When you're able to create spaces where people's stories are heard and told, and that their voice matters, the entire environment, the entire organization will change. But also I'm not even gonna call it a shameless plug, but most people need to participate and engage in a racial healing circle. And a racial healing circle is an opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds to come together for 90 minutes to engage in some breakout room activities and share their stories. The impact of participating in a racial healing circle the first time is absolutely amazing. So that is what I kind of would recommend, but there has to be intentionality from the top down and bottom up, where people feel that they can engage in these conversations.
Thank you. Dr. Lunga, parting words.
Yeah, just want to say thank you, Sharon, for such powerful and encouraging words. And like I told you yesterday that I'm a graduate of Rutgers University, and I've not been very active with alumni, but going forward, I'm definitely going to be very active. So be seeing me. And Yvette, thank you so much for coordinating this and bringing Sharon to us. We really appreciate it. Rosa, thank you. The rest of my team, we appreciate all your hard work. And everybody else, thank you very much for attending. And your presence was really appreciated, and may God bless all of you. Thank you.
Just one quick question before you leave, Sharon. Do you do the racial healings virtually?
Yes. Yes, actually we do. Initially, when we started, they were in person, face to face, and they were about 3 hours. Once COVID happened, we realized that could not happen, and not to have people in a Zoom space for 3 hours. We're able to convert them to 90 minutes, and they're still just as impactful. But yes, as a matter of fact, moving forward, they're going to be virtual for a while, simply because when a racial healing circle, we can't do 6 feet social distancing. So even after we return to in person, this racial healing circles will be virtual.
Thank you. Rosa.
I just want to say thank you, everybody. This was a wonderful hour of wealth of information. Sharon, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. And I look forward, Dr. Longa and Yvette, we look forward to having you be part of our success story, be part of our next step, that Matheny with diversity and inclusion. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you again. Thank you for everyone who attended. This will be recorded and we will make it available to everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you.